Hello, this is Evan Rogers coming at you with an Easy Evans Japanese. However, today we're using the Adventures in Japanese #3 book. I'm going to be beginning a series to help teach Japanese through this book. The reason being that many of my students who I actually tutor are using this book in their local school system here in Columbus, Ohio. So, here's the grammar of Chapter 1 in Adventures in Japanese #3. If you would like to follow along, you can buy the books through the resource page or Amazon, wherever you want to buy them. I have links to them in my resource page, should be up and over there, just on the top of the website. Okay? Okay, let's begin. We're on Chapter 1 of Adventures in Japanese 3. The first grammar point is using the no particle in a little bit of a strange way. Usually it's used as the possessive, so my pencil, or else it's used as something along the lines of just modifying one noun with another noun. This is basically a mix of both of those two ways. In this situation, we're generally using the no particle to combine two words that are the same thing. So, you have a noun here, use the no particle, and then another noun. That's a very common construction, a common pattern with the no particle. They're usually nouns. And what you end up doing is identifying y as x, or x and y are actually the same thing when you do something like this. It's a little bit tricky because it doesn't always mean this. However, when you're translating or reading something, you're going to encounter this. You're going to be like, wait, I thought those two things were the same thing. They are. For example, here we have Chichi no Jeffu desu. Chichi no Jeffu desu. It is my father Jeff. My father Jeff. My father Jeff is, like, for example, I'm pointing to a picture. I just realized that was the end of the sentence. My father Jeff is. That's how it can be used. For example, you're pointing to a picture. Hey, this is my father Jeff. Chichi no Jeffu desu. There you go. Another one. Sensei. Oops. Too fast for myself. There needs to be a no there. I almost forgot to do the exact grammar point I'm teaching. I'm an awesome teacher, aren't I? Sensei no Evan wa kibishii desu. Oh, teacher Evan is very strict. The teacher, Evan, or the Evan teacher, the teacher who is Evan. Notice that teacher and Evan are the same thing. We're saying that Evan is a teacher. We're also saying that the teacher is Evan. However, we're not saying that it's the teacher's Evan. We're not saying that it is Evan's teacher. We're not doing any of that. We're just saying that Evan is the teacher that I'm talking about. The strict teacher is the teacher Evan. The teacher Evan is a very loose way of translating. Okay, now we're on grammar point B. B is a very basic grammar point. It's just identifying what verb we use to identify what the job of a person is. So basically what you're saying is they're doing the job of a blank. So you identify the job, then you'll say o shite imasu, and that means they're doing the job. They're doing that job. That's the job that somebody is doing. So the book has a few examples on page page 33, 33 page. And I have two examples just myself. Watashi wa koukou no sensei o shite imasu. Watashi wa koukou no sensei shite imasu. I am doing the job of a high school teacher. Ani wa omowari-san o shite imasu. My brother is doing the job of a police officer. Omowari-san is another word for like a police officer to some extent. Omowari-san shite imasu. And that's just, another how to identify what job someone's doing. Very basic grammar lesson. C. Now we're on grammar point C of Chapter 1 of the 3rd book. This is the shika nai. I have negative written down. Basically, you want to be using negatives with the particle shika, usually verbs. What this does is it means only, but it's more strict than dake. A good way of translating it is nothing but blah 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 blah. Nothing but blah 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 blah. So, for example, I eat nothing but vegetables. Watashi wa yasai shika tabemasen. Something basically to that effect. I want to point out that it replaces the o, ga, and the wa particles. So if you only eat vegetables, vegetables is the object, so it takes off the O. Watashi wa, I'm the subject, and it's not just me, so we don't put shika after watashi. Watashi wa yasai shika, because only vegetables, nothing but vegetables. Yasai shika tabemasen, I do nothing but, or I eat nothing but vegetables. I hope that makes sense. It can replace e and ni, but it doesn't have to. Just, take your pick if you want to or not. So, I only go to Tokyo, I guess, if you want to say that. Watashi wa Tokyo ni shika ikimasen. Or, you could just take the ni out. Watashi wa Tokyo shika ikimasen. I only go to Tokyo. The reason why I can replace these is because if you think about it, they have a very particular meaning in each sentence. The subject only does an object or goes to a location. Based on sentence word choice alone, it should be obvious that we can't do anything else with those words. However, with all the other particles, you need to have them in there, like de and other things, because if you don't have the particle in there, you could translate it a little bit differently. That's an interesting point to look at grammatically, but it's not important. Replaces o, ga, wa, can replace e and ni, doesn't replace it, or it can't replace anything else. Put the particle before shika, okay? Put the particle before shika. So, de shika tabemasen. Restaurant de shika tabemasen. I only eat at restaurants. Think about it like that. Restaurant de shika tabemasen. I only eat at restaurants. However, if we don't have the de there, restaurant shika tabemasen. You only eat restaurants? Maybe it means restaurants only eat, which wouldn't make any sense. The de particle is very important. As you're aware, Japanese is very commonly leaves the subject out of the sentence because it's understood. So if you say restaurant shika tabemasen, most likely what you're saying is I only eat restaurants. However, you never know. Yasai shika tabemasen. If I change it to something more blatantly, not weird, yasai shika tabemasen, I only eat vegetables because it's understood that I'm the one doing the eating. Alright, moving on to D. I changed shirt color. Okay, so this is grammar point D and Adventures in Japanese. I personally did not like the way the book teaches it. So I'm going to briefly explain what they were thinking when they made this grammar point, and I'm going to teach you the way that I would handle it and the way that, trying to keep my bald head from blinding you. This book, you can't see the title, Japanese, the Spoken Language, book number 2 would explain it. Japanese, the Spoken Language was my college textbook. It has a weird romaji system. Romaji is when you write out Japanese words in English letters. But I feel like it's my Bible. It's kind of my fail-safe way to explain grammar. They do a fantastic job in this book. Difficult to use book, great reference material in my opinion. I'm going to have links to those in the reference pages, in the resources pages. Here's what Adventures in Japanese is thinking when they make this grammar point. Technically it's 2 grammar points, let me differentiate them. Technically it's 2, technically it's 1. It's a weird way that they present this. So, the way that they do this is question word, itsu, doko, nani, naze, doshite, things like that. Plus a particle that might be necessary. I want to emphasize the fact that it can't be wa or ga. It can't be those. Then we add demo. Then we add a positive predicate. And how this would normally be translated is any sort of whatever the heck it is we're talking about is whatever the verb is. So non demo e. Non-demo e. E means okay / fine. Non is thing, what thing. And if we add demo to it, it means any kind of thing e des is okay. Non-demo e des. Any type of thing is okay. The de in the sentence I just said is technically the te form of the des verb. Des turns into de and it's te form. And that's going to bring us to how Japanese, the spoken language, handles the situation. Let's move on to number 2 real quick though. If we do a question word plus whatever the particle might be, it can't be wa or ga, plus mo, plus a negative predicate, as opposed to anything, it translates to nothing. So, nani mo tabemasen deshita. I ate nothing. Nani, thing, what thing? Mo, no thing. Well, technically it's all of the things. It could either be all of the things or none of the things. Complete things. Tabemasen deshita, didn't. Nani mo tabemasen deshita. I didn't eat anything. So that's the way that this system works. Plugging in these particles here is a little bit confusing. Use the book examples to see how it's kind of done. But now I'm going to go into the Japanese, the spoken language of explaining it, and maybe that'll make more sense. Okay, and this is Japanese, the spoken language's take on it, and also my own personal take on it. When I read the Adventures in Japanese system of doing this, I was left feeling, wait, what about this? Wait, what about this? Wait, what about this? And I feel like a new learner to Japanese would also feel the same way. So I'm going to use the Japanese spoken language system, which in my own opinion polishes it up a lot better. This is from the purple book. There's 2 reds and a purple. The purple is the middle one. Lesson 21B, grammar point number 3. The official title is Interrogatives with Gerund plus Mo Sequences. When they say the word gerund in this book, they're talking about the te form. So, the system is basically the te form of an e adjective or a verb. Remember that they can both have te forms. Plus mo, plus the rest of your sentence. You know, have a sentence with basically this in it. If you find the te form plus mo inside of a sentence, treat it in the way that I'm about to explain. Also, te form, don't forget, de is the te form of des. So, that little de particle that you've been learning, secretly that's the word des. Boom. Okay, here are a few examples. And you're gonna have to take a second to think about it. So here we have the first one. Dochira demo ii desu. Whichever, dochira means sort of, which. And then if we add de, which is mo, any of the which is's, which basically could in English translate to whichever, any of the which is's, any of them, any of the selected things is okay. Dochira demo ii desu. All of the whichevers, whiches, all of the which, then that's W-H-I-C-H. Not, things that cast magic. So, all of the witches are okay. Translates logically to, not literally to, but logically to, whichever is okay. Whichever is okay. Hey, dude, whatever. It's all good. Yo! Alright. Now, that's the demo after an interrogative, which is what the book here, The Adventures in Japanese, is teaching you. Now let's move on to a regular old verb. Kore o tsukatte mo muda da. Muda means pointless or hopeless or, ineffective. Da, plain form of des. Hopefully you remember that if you've been studying through Adventures in Japanese. Kore o tsukatte mo. This is the kanji for tsukau, use. Tsukatte mo. Kore o tsukatte mo muda da. This, using this, mo. All of the using of this is pointless. All of the using of this, even if you use this. All of the using of this, even if you use this, it's hopeless. Man, even if we use this, it's hopeless. And now we're on the third one. Just to point things out, nan desu ka, nan de, this des is de, nan de mo. Do you see how that kind of works? Do you see? That's a South Park reference, kind of spooky, when he's showing Cartman his Grand Canyon pictures. Nan demo, nan desu ka. Oh, what is it? It's anything. Let's do a few more examples. Just 2 more examples for you. Kanji o nankai. This is the kanji for nankai. Nankai mo kaite mo oboeraremasen. Write kanji any number of times. Nankai mo, many times, in all of the times. Kanji o nankai mo kaite mo oboeraremasen. I can't remember even if I write them all of the times. The kanji. Even if I write kanji so many times, I can't remember them. Here we have another one. Donna ni oishikute mo. However, donna ni, to whatever degree, donna ni oishikute mo, it's delicious, to all of the deliciousness, tabenaide kudasai. No matter how hard you try, you can't stop us now, sorry. No matter how delicious it is, don't eat it, please. No matter how delicious it is, don't eat it, please. A little bit confusing, but this temo, this demo, kind of means no matter what, or like any, those sorts of things. Okay, now we're talking about what's in the JSL book, Japanese as Spoken Language book, lesson 23A, grammar point, what's it, 4? Do I have written down 4? Yes. Noun plus demo, and it only replaces ga or o, translates loosely to something like that. So here we have keiki demo tsukuru. Keiki demo tsukuru. Hey, let's make like a cake or something. Cake or something. Like keiki demo tsukuru. Yeah, or something is a basic translation of this. Party e, because it's not ga or o. Party e demo ikimashou. Hey, let's go to a party or something. Yo, yo. I don't know why I keep saying yo-yo, just ignore that. Keiki demo tsukuru. Let's make something like a cake. Party e demo ikimashou. Hey, let's go to some place like a party. These aren't interrogative nouns, but they could be doko e demo ikimashou. Basically the exact same sentence that we just had with party, but now we're just replacing party with doko. Doko e demo ikimashou. Hey, let's go to some place, any place. Nandemo ii desu. Hey, anything is totally fine, yo. I keep saying yo, I don't know why. Itsu demo kite ii desu. Whenever you want to come is fine. Whenever you come is fine. Itsu demo kite ii desu, yo. And things like that. Now, last part of this grammar point. Okay, so here's a brief list of the different questions, of a list of questions, words that we can use with this last section, this grammar point. Okay, nani mo tabemasen deshita. I didn't eat anything. Remember, this mo replaces o, ga, and wa. Okay, so if we're understanding that we didn't eat anything, and we say nani mo tabemasen deshita, the mo is replacing the o particle. So, nani mo tabemasen deshita. I didn't eat anything. Nani mo shite imasen. I'm not doing anything. Moving on to doko, we have doko e mo, because e isn't a o, ga, or wa. So if we want to say we didn't go anywhere, doko e mo ikimasen deshita. I didn't go anywhere. Doko e mo ikimasen deshita. Doko ni mo ikimasen deshita. The ni and the e particle are very similar in this situation. Small difference, not a big one. Doko e mo ikimasen deshita. I didn't go anywhere. Doko ni mo ikimasen deshita. So, in that sort of a structure, we can use that. I wrote a longer list, and I had to erase a bunch because when I started saying them, they didn't sound right at all, and I had to erase them. This is a strange thing to teach. Once again, both textbooks do a weird job teaching this. I'm trying to give more examples than the books give to give you a more complete understanding. Dore mo suki de wa arimasen. Dore means sort of like all of the witches, which one? This is sort of which. Then with the mo, all of the witches. W-H-I-C-H, not W-I-T-C-H. All of the witches. So whichever. Both of them, all of them. Suki de wa arimasen. I don't like any of them. Dore mo tabemasen deshita. I didn't eat either one of them. Dore mo nusumimasen deshita. I didn't steal any of them. Things like that. Dochira and dore work very similar. Dare? Dare works in a strange way. You could say dare mo shirimasen. I don't know anybody. Or maybe that translates also to nobody knows. Dare mo shirimasen watashi wa daremo shitemasen. I don't know anyone. Nobody knew. I don't know anybody. Once again, just in case you didn't catch that. Watashi wa daremo shitte imasen. I don't know anybody. Daremo shitemasen. Nobody knows. Notice how that's important to identify who the subject is when you have this mo particle. Okay. Dare ni mo aimasen deshita. I didn't meet anybody. Because when you're meeting somebody, you need to have that ni particle. Dare ni mo aimasen deshita means I didn't meet with anybody. If we say dare mo aimasen deshita, it would mean nobody met anybody. Well, nobody met whatever we're talking about. Very subtle differences in this one. Be careful of what you mean to say. I hope these examples help you out, and the examples in the book also help you out. And the examples I'm going to include with this lesson eventually. I don't have them up yet. Okay, moving on to E. Grammar point E, Chapter 1, Adventures in Japanese 3. This is such a basic grammar point that I don't really feel like it justifies its own thing, but hey, let's explain it. When you're doing your quotations like, hey, he said, eat at Charlie's. Charlie's de taberu to iimashita. Usually we use a to. However, when you're talking quickly, you're being kind of lazy with your speech. Instead of saying going to, you say gonna. Instead of saying have to, you say have to. They use the te. So you'll hear the phrase nan to, instead of nan to iimashita, you will hear nan te imashita ka. And usually you're going to hear this te with the plain form of verbs. When you're doing plain speech, talking with your friends to some extent. You're going to hear te even when you're being polite. But remember, the more precise and enunciated you speak in Japanese, the more polite you sound. I was told this many times when I was in Japan because I talked very slurredly. Awesome. Okay, now we're on grammar point F of Chapter 1, Adventures in Japanese 3, and it's a pretty basic thing to wrap your head around. As you should have learned already in the book, I haven't made the video yet. If you notice the date on this video, it's actually the first video I'm using Adventures in Japanese 3. As you should have learned by now, there's a masho form. Ikimasho, let's go! Tabemasho, let's eat! Onara dashimasho, let's fart! It's a weird thing to say, but whatever. There's a plain form of this. All things you can say in polite form, you could also say in plain form, casual form, whatever the friggin' term you want to use. Dictionary form, there's 8 ways of saying it. The book calls Group 3 irregular verbs. No qualms there, it's an accurate statement. They are irregular. I'm calling them Group 3, okay? When you're dealing with irregular verbs or Group 3 verbs, same thing. There's just 2 to worry about. Suru, shimasho turns into shiyo, so just shi plus yo. Kimas, kuru, in the plain form it's kuru, turns into koyo. Okay, so now we're going to do Group 2 verbs. Group 2 verbs are tabemasu, mimasu, other things like that. I have a list of them on my website. Go check dictionary, look for the verb section, and each single verb that you should have learned by now, not in the Adventures in Japanese, not yet, is in the, identifies which group it's in. Alright, Group 2, you just take the stem, which in case you forgot the stem is just when you have the mas form, you just drop the mas, so tabemas turns into tabet. The stem of tabemas is tabet. Now this is a Group 1 verb, but ikimasu stem is iki, take off the mas, iki. So you take the stem, and then you just add yo. So, tabeyo, miyo, kakeyo, things like that. Okay? That's how you do a Group 2 verb. Now we're going to do a Group 1. Alright, now we're talking about Group 1 verbs. Isn't that magic how that happens? Whoa! Alright, anyway. One way of creating the plain masho form is simply to take the stem of your Group 1 verb. My favorite Group 1 verb that I always use for examples is ikimasu. So if we take ikimasu, take the stem, drop off mas, we get iki. Then we drop it like it's mega hot. you drop it like a tut, drop it like a tut. However, you don't just drop it one time, you're gonna drop it like it's mega hot, all the way down to the ooh. So you take your E, your stems are in the E, because they're group 1s. Group 1 stem are always in the E. And they drop mega hot all the way down to the O's. Ikimasu stem is iki. We drop it all the way down to the ko, okay? And that is dropping it down like it's mega hot. Yeah, I don't dance. Well, I can dance, you don't want to see it. And then the third step is just add u at the end. So iki turns into iko, turns into iko. And I've changed color. What happened was, the reason why I've changed color on you is that the actual camera had stopped recording halfway through the video. So let's continue anyway. As I just explained to you, it was we're talking about group 1 verbs going into the masho form, in the plain masho form, so o. So for example, if we have ikimasu, the stem is iki, then we drop it like it's mega hot to the ko, so iko. If we have the shi sound, for example, hanashimasu, hanaso, hanaso. Chi tachimasu, tato, kind of a strange usage of that. If we have I wrote non-accident, let's change that. Should be ni. Group 1 verbs do not end in the ah sound. That's a horrible looking ni. There we go. The only verb I can think of that has a ni sound in it is shinimasu, which means to die. Shino, hey, let's die. That's kind of weird. Anyway, asobi, maybe you're in a crazy cult. Asobimasu, hey, let's hang out. Asobo. Nomimasu, nomo. Ri, hashirimasu, run. Hashiro. So those are all group 1 verbs in the masho form, in the plain form of the masho form. Boom. Grammar point G of chapter 1. This is a really basic one that helps you out when you're looking up words. To say the statement that you are currently doing something, you say, for example, that you use the te form plus imasu. So hanashite imasu, hanashite iru. The plain form is hanashiteru. So verb in the te form plus iru, right? Currently doing. When you are speaking casually, you can just ignore the e and write down teru. This is just because, you know, the idea of have to turns into have to, going to turns into gonna, and things like that. Just, you know, your mouth is moving quickly, and so you ignore the e sound. Hanashiteru, itteru, tabeteru, things like that. So when you're looking up words in books, for example, when I was younger, I was looking up in, in Dragon Ball. I'll grab a Dragon Ball real quick. Dragon Ball! Anyway, you can grab a Dragon Ball off the shelf, and because it's spoken language in these comics, you will see this teru a lot. And when I was young and I was looking up these words, I thought they were group 2 verbs that I've never heard of before. Like tatakateru, and as opposed to tatakateimasu. So I look up tatakateru, and I couldn't find anything in my dictionary. The reason was, it's actually tatakateiru. So be aware of that when you're reading or watching a manga, or yeah, anything like that, an anime or a manga. Word. Alright, and here's grammar point 8. There's nothing really to write here, so I wrote nothing to write. And here's a picture of me with a green and red shirt on. And I also have a little curly cute hair coming out the top of my bald head. Great, awesome. Let's continue. Grammar point H. This is about speech styles. It's worth mentioning the fact that based on what verb endings and how people talk, you can understand their relationship with one another. If people are not properly enunciating words to their greatest extent, they're generally talking a bit more casually. Remember, the more you enunciate, the more polite you are being to the other person. So when people are enunciating and not saying nani tabeteru instead of the tabeteiru or the tabeteimasu, nani tabetemasu. When you're not enunciating, you're not trying to be polite. When you are enunciating, you are trying to be at least a little bit polite. Same is true generally in English. Going further, if you're using the mas form, tabemasu, tabete imasu, nonde imasu, arukimasu, things like that, that's an attempt at being polite. That's actually polite speech. They refer to it in almost every textbook as polite speech. When you're using the ru, the ku, those sorts of verbs, iku, hashiru, taberu, those things, those are more, those are called plain, casual, dictionary. There's 8 billion different ways of calling these verbs by their name. These are the more casual. You will hear friends using these stylings of words with one another. So you're hanging out with your friends, you're not saying, "Oh, nani o tabete imasu ka?" You're saying, "Oh, nani tabeteru no?" And things like that. Just the way people speak. Okay? And so what's important is that if you hear two people using the mas and they're enunciating, they either don't know each other very well or they're intentionally acting polite for whatever social reason that might be. If two people are using casual / dictionary / whatever you want to call it form, no taberu, taberu, they're probably friendly and they're not in a serious situation and they might be mutually on the same hierarchical status level, so to speak. So members in a family might be using those together. People of the same grade who are friends might be using this together. Co-workers of the same, the same level might be using this together, and that sort of thing. When you see one person using enunciation and using the mas form, and you see somebody else using plain form and not necessarily enunciating everything, what you can generally determine from that is casual speaking dude doesn't care about being polite. Guy who's using polite form does care about being polite. Ergo, casual speaking dude is probably, or dudette, sorry for the ladies out there, just, whatever. The individual who is using casual speech and the individual who is using non-casual speech, they're on a different level. Casual individual is probably above the individual using polite speech. Just an interesting thing to know. Based on what verb choices they use, or verb ending choices, you can generally guess where people are on the social ladder. One more grammar point. Boom! And last but not least, we're on grammar point I. Woo! An I. This lesson had a lot of grammar points in it, which is making this a very long video. Sorry. I didn't realize how long it was going to be. So, this is talking about male speech versus female speech. You're dealing, Japanese is a language where females speak one way, males speak a different way, and they abide by such things, generally. For example, you might be aware that there are numerous ways of saying the word me. Ore, boku, watashi, watakushi, washi, and things like that. Depending on which one you choose, also for you, omae, anta, anata, kimi, and things like that. Depending on which words you choose, you're sort of identifying yourself on the masculinity chart. Or the femininity chart. Sorry, I guess I'm a guy, I think that way. Sorry, ladies. The issue is that some things are said by men more than some things are said by women. Vice versa, some things are said more by women than some things are said by men. When I was teaching in Japan, teaching English, I noticed that the rules that I learned in the textbook that were the official rules of being Japanese weren't all that true. So take this with a grain of salt. I'm going to put in my own perspective on what I saw in the schools. Okay, so here we go. Males generally are going to be using, once again, this is all on page 40 and 41, so double check in your book, Adventures in Japanese 3. The male speech generally has zo, which is kind of like, it kind of replaces the particle yo in many things. No, that's not a proper example at all, what I was about to say. Well, for the example, the book says, Kyo wa... Oh, I saw, it didn't have the kanji, so I had no idea what it was saying. Sorry. For example, the book has the sentence, Kyo wa katsuzo, like, hey, I'm gonna win today, katsu. I was like, does that say katsu? Sorry, without kanji, it didn't make sense in my brain. Yeah, katsuzo, I'm gonna win today. It kind of is like the yo particle, but it's like manly yo particle. To be totally honest, I actually didn't hear many women using the zo particle at the end of a sentence. Going further, ze, very similar to zo. I'm actually not exactly sure what the difference is, but you know, you do hear it. Also, you don't hear many women saying that, honest to goodness. I didn't hear many women saying ze and zo. Kai. Instead of the question marker ka, I would, the book is identifying kai. I gotta admit, I almost never heard anyone use the particle kai. I was in Gunma-ken, maybe it was a regional thing. Either way, when I came back to the States and was teaching Japanese, one of my students who spoke Japanese pretty well, she saw me teaching this, and we both just, every time we read a sentence ending in kai, we just started laughing at it. And so I'm gonna be honest, I didn't hear kai much, so don't you know, be too much on the kai side. However, if you hear it, you'll know that that's a sort of a manly thing. I'm a lumberjack. Yes, I am. Also, yes, in male speech, you will hear da yo. Yo coming directly after da. Da is the plain form of des, and you'll hear that a lot. Da yo. You'll even hear da zo sometimes. Either way, it does exist. Yeah, that's totally true. I could swear I've heard females using da yo too, but maybe that's just my brain remembering things incorrectly. This one has to be contrasted with the female usage. Many sentences will end in plain form, which you technically should have learned by now. I haven't taught it yet, but according to the books you should have learned it by now. Many plain form sentences will just end in adjectives. Or just in verbs, you know, you'll just end them. However, females will end the sentences in no a lot. And it'll generally be a question style. So, oh, nani o taberu no? What will you eat? Did you notice my voice even without thinking raised up? Probably because I was thinking about females saying such things. Whereas many men will end their sentences with just no whatsoever. Oi, nani o taberu? What are you gonna eat? No, notice the, listen carefully to the intonation. Males, nani o taberu no? Oh, I just screwed up. Nani o taberu? And females will say nani o taberu no? I'm overemphasizing it, and even I got it mixed up. That's because honestly, women don't always use no. Many women will just use the nothing. I hear it a lot. Maybe I've been hanging out with some masculine females, but honest to goodness, this isn't a huge difference. So a lot of men will end it with no. I've even heard some men use wa who aren't of the homosexual persuasion, as you might assume. If someone's trying to sound feminine and they're a male, they might be of a homosexual persuasion. Anyway, I don't want to get in trouble for that. Anyway, tekure, ending your sentences in the stem is very blunt. That's very manly, or very I'm the boss style. So tekure is a very blunt way of saying, hey, give me that, or I want you to do that. Oh, tabete kure, you eat that for me, or something like that. That's a request style. This kure is a stem form of kuremasu. Please give to me. Female speech. We have was and wa yo and things like that. Whenever you hear a sentence ending in wa, and it's not the hawa particle, you know, like dare wa, you know, which actually you would never say that, or Christina wa, or something like that. You might hear that occasionally, but either way, when you hear it just wa itself, and it's the wa particle, you can identify that with female speech. So, just some notes to take away on male and female speech. The reason why this book is teaching it to you is for identification purposes. Don't go trying to use too much of this, because you'll probably end up using it a little bit wrong until you hear it a lot. So watch those animes, pay attention to who's using the zoze, kais, and the wa and nos and things like that. And you're going to find that this chart isn't 100% set in concrete. You're going to find this is a little bit varied. Adventures in Japanese 3, Chapter 1, Grammar Points, done. The amazing shirt changing Evan is out of here. See you later. Boom.